What's up, everyone? Kriddle here, and I wanted to go over a quick overview of the Baldur's Gate 3 character creation, because I'm getting a lot of questions on what class should I be, what race should I be, what does it matter, all this kind of stuff. And I have a lot of experience with D&D 5th edition and also strategy games like this. So to me, this was very simple. I look at it and I go, okay, this is totally understandable. I get it. But somebody coming in for the first time, this is very overwhelming to them, so they just have a ton of questions. So first and foremost, before we start getting into all of that, I'm going to tell you what this game is. It is a strategy role-playing game. So you're going to be going through a story, and your decisions are going to matter. And then in combat, it's going to be very strategic, rather than just barging in and, you know, who can do the most damage and that kind of thing. You're still going to want to like move around strategically, place your characters where they want to be, things like that, and use certain types of spells or certain types of weapons to deal with certain types of situations. So your race and your class will matter, but it's not going to be, oh, I got to choose a race and a class. It's going to be the most powerful, and I got to do this combination of race and class so that I can min-max my character to, you know, the top end of the game. You don't need to worry about that. That's mostly coming from a lot of the Diablo players. I play a lot of Diablo 4 right now, and there's Diablo players that are coming in trying to play this game for the first time. They're like, how do I min-max my character? And it's like, don't worry about min-maxing your character. So first thing you're going to choose is custom character or origin character. Your custom character is this one right here. You can customize it any way that you want. So you can go over here and you can change their class, their race, their subclass, all of these things over here. And then over here, you can change their appearance, randomize their appearance however you want, or you can go in here and change the appearance and the voice and, you know, all the options that you have there. So that's what your origin character is going to be, is literally create the character that you want, or sorry, the custom character is going to be. The origin characters are these characters down here, which are technically NPCs in the game. You will be able to unlock all of these origin characters as you play the game, and they will join your party, and you'll be able to go through and use them in your party or go through their quest lines, things like that. You'll be able to gain relationships with them, be it positive or negative, and their stories will kind of unfold for you as that happens. So you can start as one of these characters if you choose to, or you can create a custom character. But think, if you create a custom character, you do not lose out on these characters. So don't think you need to start on one of these. I will say, though, if you play this game with 4 players and they all create a custom character, you will not be able to put an origin character in your party outside of the tutorial. So if you want to be able to go through the origin character stories, only play this game with 3 players, and if you have a 4th player, ask one of your players if they wouldn't mind playing one of these origin characters. And how you would do that is start the game, 3 players only, and they create their custom character. Once the game is started, the 4th player then joins your session, and the host of the session can give them control of one of these origin characters or whatever the NPC character you have at the time. So they would then gain control, and that could be a rotating player, or it could be the same player that just rotates different origin characters, or however you guys want to do it. But if you want to be able to see these origin stories and these characters and have them in your party, you need to have at least one available character slot. You can have a player play them, but just make sure that one person doesn't create a custom character or an origin character at the beginning. They can just join your game and you give them a character. So go over that. That's what those 2 things are. So you can choose how you want to do that. Race. The only thing you need to really look at on race is going to be these class features down here. Do not worry about the stats. A lot of people are like, okay, well, what race is better for which class? You know, which one's going to have the better stats? Don't look at the stats. The stats are literally going to be the same for every single class. Every class can be every race, and every race can be every class, so it doesn't matter. The only thing that does matter are these racial features down here. So look through those and see if there's any racial features that are just a, you know, must-have or not a big deal for you or whatever. Other than that, I would just pick the race that you like the looks of it, you know, or you want to be able to role play as, you know, a tiefling or something. I want to play this, you know, tiefling character. I want to role play as it. I have this idea of what I want to do, and it's going to be a tiefling. So just go with it that way. The only things that are going to make any type of difference as far as combat is concerned in the game are your base run speed and dark vision. So some classes have a higher base run speed than others. Specifically, the halfling, dwarf, and gnome have a slower run speed than everybody else. And then some races have dark vision, while others don't have dark vision. Those are going to be your main things. Things that don't have dark vision are your human, your gith, your halfling, and your gnome, and your dragonborn. Everybody else has dark vision. So those are really the only things that you're going to be looking at. But some of these other features you may also like, relentless endurance. If you get to 0 health, you instead go to 1 health. Things like that, which are not really game breaking, but they could be kind of cool if you're playing a very reckless barbarian. A lot of people like to go with half orc. But is that going to really make or break your character? No, because this can only happen once per day. So you're not going to be like every single fight going down to 0 health. Oh, I'm at 1 actually. It's a once per day kind of thing. Most of these features are not like overpowered. You have things like advantage, which I'm not going to go into what advantage and disadvantage and all that is here, but you have things like advantage on your charmed or can't be put to sleep, things like that. Not going to be a big deal for most of your playthrough, but it might have more roleplay effects than anything else. So once you have chosen your race, you're going to go down here to your class. I'm not going to go over each individual class. That's just going to take way too long. But what you want to do is just look at the class, read what it does right here, kind of give you a brief description of it. You have your actions. So this is going to kind of tell you what some of the things that this class can do that other classes can't do. And then you can look here for your details to see proficiencies. Some classes have more proficiencies, less proficiencies, or just different proficiencies than others. For example, barbarians are proficient in light and medium armor, and they can use shields. However, you don't really want to use armor because they have unarmored defense. So while not wearing armor, you add your constitution modifier to your armor class. So you kind of just want to read over what these things are. So the armor is literally not going to make a difference for most barbarians because they're just going to have high constitution and high strength and probably also high dex. Those are going to be the 3 things that a barbarian has, but they're going to be dumb and they're going to not be very wise and probably not very charismatic. So that's basically how that's going to work. And they're going to get, all these physical stats that make them better. So like I said, just read through each one of these. Once you pop open the details, you can just kind of pop through them like this. You can also see the details over here, so you don't have to necessarily pop up the details. You can say, okay, Bard, what does it do? Look over here to the side. It gives you all of the information on the Bard right here. The only other thing I want to say is for the cantrips and the spells, for any class that has cantrips and spells, those can be changed. So don't think, oh, if I play this Bard, I have to go with these cantrips or these spells or whatever. No, you're going to be changing those next. So we're going to go take a look at these cantrips. We're going to use the Bard as an example. You'll be able to change these cantrips, however you want. You can get rid of this one, and I want to get this one, and I want to get this one, right? So those are cantrips, your starting cantrips. Cantrips do not change typically throughout your playthrough. So once you choose a cantrip, that's going to be your cantrip throughout the playthrough. Cantrips are unlimited cast. You can cast as many of them as you want per day. They usually do take 1 action, sometimes a bonus action. Again, I don't want to get into all of that, but essentially you can take 1 action per turn. You can take 1 action, 1 bonus action, and 1 reaction. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it's like 1 action per turn, right? And then also a bonus action. So that's going to be how that works. So if you look at this, this says it takes 1 action to cast Friends. So that's going to be your action for that turn. Some classes can get multiple actions on a turn. Some can't. Depends on the action, things like that. That's, again, for somewhere down the road. So when you're looking at these cantrips, make sure you choose cantrips that you think you're going to like. I would recommend for most classes, Bard, not necessarily, but for like a wizard or a warlock or sorcerer, druid, cleric, I would recommend getting at least 1 cantrip that is a damaging cantrip. Firebolt's a good one, Sacred Flame, Produce Flame, those kind of things are cantrips that most people go with. And then other than that, you want to just choose some other things that you're going to find utility with. Light is a good utility spell for light. things like that. So just read through these and see what you're going to want to use. Again, you will not be changing these cantrips very often. I also like Blade Ward. That's kind of like a setup that I would do for a wizard, for example. Spells are a little bit different, however, than cantrips. So once you go with the spells, you have more to choose from. Depending on the class that you choose, Wizard gets to start with 6 spells, Warlock and Sorcerer only start with 2 spells. Cleric and Druid, as you can see, you don't get to choose their spells, and there's a reason for that. So we're going to look at the Wizard, though, real quick. So you're going to be able to choose 6 spells. You can just delete all these out if you want to, or you can leave what they recommend. And then you can go through and read these. Like, Burning Hands is a good one. Mage Armor is a good one. I like Longstrider. Specifically in this game, I like Longstrider. Just whatever spells that you think are going to be good. Featherfall could be good for certain things. Whatever you want to do for your spells, right? Now, let's say you picked these 6 spells to start with, and you're like, man, I wish I would have picked something different. Cool, no problem. Thing is about wizards is they're going to get a lot of different spells, and you're going to be able to change that throughout your playthrough as much as you want. Same thing with druids, clerics, paladins, and rangers. So druids, clerics, paladin, and rangers, you're going to be able to as soon as you can learn a spell, they will learn the spell because they're divine casters, so they will automatically get the spells, and then you'll be able to change those spells as much as you want. So don't worry about choosing spells on these. You don't even get the option to do that. But down here for the wizard, the spells that you choose are going to be spells that are in your spell book at the beginning and that you have memorized and ready to cast. However, you'll be able to learn new spells, put them into your spell book, and change them as you play through the game. Later, all you have to do is just open up your spell book and say, I want to memorize this spell for the day. Super easy peasy. Now, when you get down here to the Warlock and Sorcerer, it's a little bit different. You're going to choose these spells, but then every time that you level up, you can actually forget a spell and learn a new spell. In addition to that, every time you level up, you can just gain a new spell. So let's say you go from level 3 to 4, and you're learning new spells or whatever. It's going to say, do you want to forget a spell? You can say yes or no. If you say yes, you'll forget whatever spell it is that you choose, and then they'll allow you to choose another spell to learn. Then, after that's done, it'll say, now choose an additional spell to learn, and they'll just give you a new spell. So you get to learn additional spells, but you're going to have way fewer to choose from than the wizard class by the end, and way fewer than these divine casters as well. So just kind of understand how that works. Other than that, just kind of read what these little different things do, and they'll kind of explain the class to you. But we'll go over spells maybe in a different video in a lot more detail. Background. Your background is only going to give you these bonuses right here to these different skills. So that's what you're looking at here. Also, the background might change some of the dialogue options that you get. So you might, go into a dialogue with somebody as a noble, and they're going to be like, oh, you're a noble. I can see your crest, yada, yada, yada. And you might be able to speak to them noble to noble. Or maybe you're going to go, into some sort of criminal underground area, and they're going to see you, oh, you know how this place works. You're a criminal as well, or whatever. So that it might be dialogue choices. Other than that, though, it's only going to be these skills. So those are really the only things you need to look at are going to be these skills down here, where you're going to get bonuses for those skills. Then we're going to look down here at abilities. So abilities, if you don't know what to do with these, you can just hit recommended, and it'll recommend them. That's what's going to be over here. Every time you change your class over here, that's what's going to change all this stuff over here. And this is going to give you the recommended assignments. So in most cases in D&D 5th edition, each race has specific bonuses. They might get, +2 to one stat or +1 to 2 different stats or whatever. But in this game, they kind of balance that out a little bit more. So everyone gets a +2 to one stat and a +1 to one stat that they get to choose. So you could actually clear this whole thing out, and everybody starts at 8. And you have 27 points to choose from, and you have a +2 and a +1 bonus. The highest you can actually go with this is 15 on any one stat, and then you can get a +2 for a 17. So that's really all you need to know about how these work. And then you just want to say, okay, well, I'm playing a wizard. Wizards need intelligence. How much intelligence do I want to put into it? And then I want to make that 17, right? Because that's the highest I can get it. That's probably what I want to do. But some of you might be asking, okay, well, what's the difference in these numbers? So we're going to kind of back it out again a little bit. Each time you put a point into here, it's going to take 1 point away from here up to 13. So going up to 13, we're going to go from 9 here, or go to 9 and 10. And see how it's 1 point, 1 ability point each time. We get to 12 and 13. It was 1 ability point each. Now, when we go to 14, it's going to take 2 ability points. So keep that in mind when you're putting your stats in. Do you want to spend 2 ability points to get that extra 1 point here? Or do you want to leave that at 13 and put in 2 additional ability points somewhere else? You could potentially, go 13 kind of across the board, do something like that, and then you could put, that in here. I don't think you can do both of these. So you could do that in there, and then you can put a +1 here. You could do that and have very balanced stats. What that would do is it's going to make all of your bonuses slightly less. So for every 2 points that you have, you're going to gain +1 to your ability checks, depending on what those ability checks are. For a wizard, for example, is going to be using intelligence for all of their spell casting stuff. If you were to change this, though, and you were going to go with a warlock, and you come down here and look at this, it's going to say charisma. Charisma is your main. You're going to be looking, all of your spell casting stuff is going to be charisma. So you want to look at that when you're creating your character. Which one has the star by it, you definitely want to put points into. Other than that, it depends on how you want to play your character. So I do recommend maxing out whatever your main one is to the max and putting the 2 points into it. I highly recommend that. That's almost a no-brainer for everybody. But if you don't want to do that and you want to base it off of strictly how much you get as far as per point, 2 points equals one addition to your check. So if I have an 8, that's a -1. 10 is your 0. So 10 is your average, right? And then for every 2 points you put into it, it's going to go up by +1. Now, what you want to also factor in is as you level, you're going to be able to put points into these things. So you might be able to put 1 point or 2 points into them as you level. Let's say you hit level 4, you're going to get a proficiency bonus, which is going to go here. And then you're also going to be able to put 2 points into whatever stats you want. You can put 1 point into here and 1 point into here, or you could, if you want to, put 2 points into here. So if you wanted to, what you could do is put this at, let's say, 14 and then give a +2. So that's going to give you your +3 to your charisma checks and all of your attack rolls and things like that. So charisma checks are going to be deception, persuasion, performance, things like that. Plus, in addition, their attack rolls for this particular character, or this particular class. So why would you put that additional point in there? It's only going to give you, or it's not going to give you anything right now. But at level 4, you could have that 1 additional point and then put 1 more point and get it to 18 and then do another one up here. So let's say you wanted to do your dexterity, you can put at, 13. So then at level 4, you get 2 points that you can spend. You put 1 into your charisma and 1 into your dexterity, and that bumps them up from a +1 to a +2 here, and from a +3 to a +4. So that's kind of what you're looking at here, and why you might want to kind of plan those out a little bit more if you want to. But you can also just say use recommended. These are going to be fine. These stats are absolutely okay. I would recommend putting the highest in whatever the star is, and then kind of choosing from there. A quick version of what each of these are going to do for every race or every class. Strength is going to be, anything that's going to be a strength type check. You're climbing a wall or somebody tries to push you over. It's going to be kind of a strength contest type thing there. It's also going to be if you're using a weapon that uses strength, things like a sword or a club, those kind of things, non-finesse weapons. So anything that you use strength for. So think about, if I'm swinging this, do I use my strength or do I use something else? That's what that's going to be for. Dexterity is going to be your dodging. So if you're dodging, like a fireball comes at you and you're trying to avoid the fireball, that's what that's going to be. There's other types of spells like that. Also, it's for any type of finesse weapon. Your bows, your longbow, your crossbows, those kind of things are all going to be finesse weapons, and they're going to get bonuses from here. So it doesn't matter what your strength is if you're using a longbow or a dagger or a rapier. Those are all going to pull the damage and the hit chance from your dexterity. Your constitution is going to be for your hit points. So this is actually a good one for pretty much everybody. You're going to get a bonus hit points based on your constitution. It's 1 per 2 points. So from here, every time you level up, you're going to get +0. If you have 12, every time you level up, you're going to get +1, that kind of thing. So that's going to be your maximum hit points. Also for things like if you get poisoned or similar types of things, you're going to have a constitution roll to be able to resist the poison or take less damage from the poison, that kind of thing. Intelligence is going to be for your certain spellcasters, specifically the wizard. I think is the only one actually that uses just intelligence. So if you want to do more damage as a wizard, you're going to want to max that out. But then in addition to that, intelligence is going to be things for things like history checks and investigation checks. It's like how smart you are when you look at something. It's going to be a lot of rolls that are based on intelligence. So you may want to increase that based on that. Wisdom is kind of a little bit different from that. Wisdom is going to be not how much you know about something, but your insight checks, things like that. So like, can you tell if somebody's lying to you or something along those lines? Like in your perception checks, intelligence is not perception. A lot of people get those two confused because your perception check is you're hearing things and you hear like the wind blowing a certain way. Okay, so you know that something might be happening over there. It's not an intelligence thing. It's like it's a wisdom thing, right? So certain checks will be that. And then also your divine casters. So your cleric, your druid, your paladin are all going to be using wisdom. Now, if you go with a paladin, for example, it's going to say strength is your main stat. That's true, it is, but your spellcasting modifier is still going to be wisdom. It's not going to be based on your strength. Strength is only going to tell you how much damage you do and how often you hit with your weapon, whereas your wisdom is going to be how much healing you do and things of that nature. So you're going to want to have wisdom if you do go with a class like that. Charisma is spellcasting modifier for certain classes, but also things like performance and deception and persuasion. So if you're doing a dialogue with somebody, you have a better chance of getting them to do what you want them to do. So that covers pretty much how all of these work. Hopefully I covered everything. I know I'm going very, very fast because there's just a lot of information. The last thing that you get to do, if you have a class that actually has spells, that starts with spells, you'll be able to choose prepared spells. Notice that some of these, if you go through them, they do not have prepared spells, but like the druid does. So prepared spells is basically going to take your first level spells. This is every first level spell that you have available to you, and you get to put them in here. Those are going to be the spells that you start with and you can cast. Now, if you were to say choose a wizard, your wizard spells, prepared spells, are going to be from the original 6 that you chose up here. Notice that they have a lot more than 6 spells to choose from, and that's because they can learn all these other spells and put them in their spell book, but they only have 6 spells starting in their spell book, and they can only choose 4 of those spells that they have in their spell book that they've memorized and are ready to cast per day. Now, if we go to something like a warlock, they don't have prepared spells because they always have the same prepared spells. They only have 2 prepared spells, or they only know 2 spells in the beginning, and those are just automatically prepared. Same thing with a sorcerer. So that's basically how those are going to work. But your cleric, your druid, and your ranger at higher levels once they learn spells, and your bard at higher levels once they learn spells, and even your rogue, if you choose that route to learn spells, are going to work more like a wizard, where you're going to be able to prepare the spells based on the spells that you have available to you. So Ultimately, that's basically how everything works here. I know it's a lot of information. Hopefully it helps out though with making your character. The short version of this is just make what you think it'll be fun and don't worry about it too much. The stats will definitely change, but the star stat is your main stat that you want to look at. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully we'll do some more Baldur's Gate 3 videos. I might do one that goes over each class individually, something like that. But leave some comments if you have any other questions. Thanks so much. Bye.